Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm here with Chris from Like Moths To Flames. How you doing, man?
Great, man. Good to have you.
Cool.
Well, good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I say, the big topic of the world right now is how's lockdown been for you? How you've been coping?
I think, given all things considered, like it's been, I'm like one of those people who's kind of like enjoyed the year just because I've spent, I started touring when I was like 16, 17. So most of the time of my life has been on the road.
Yeah.
So this is really the first year where I can kind of just like kick back, enjoy time with my wife and just enjoy being home. But from a more of like a business standpoint, and I guess like developing the band of the brand, it's made it very challenging because we came from an era that wasn't very prevalent with streaming, that kind of happened within the middle of our band's career. So it's become, I think, more of a kind of like a hurdle to figure out how to kind of like evolve and adapt to what's happening. I think because most bands are like expecting to be on tour, they're expecting to be on the road. Word of mouth does a lot for when you want to talk about your band to people that don't really know it. I think the internet, there's kind of a cap. As much as it's this broad open thing and there's billions of people on it, I think at the same time it's very easy for people to see just what they want to see. Whereas like, you go to a show on Friday, you pay what, 20, 25 bucks for a ticket or 20 bucks for a ticket. You're kind of forced, your hand is forced a little bit more to kind of just like experience the music for what it is. So I think, given the normal things that people are like dealing with and complaining about during the pandemic, that like those things suck. But I think truly it just is complicated for us because we're not all from the same area. I think there's probably the shortest distance between like one of the other members and myself is 3 hours.
Right.
And outside of that, the other dudes are like 8+ away. So it's definitely made things challenging, but more so like I just miss the dudes. I miss being able to like experience the like the good energy that comes with releasing music and stuff. So it's a little weird. Like, this is my office. This is where a lot of like my good vibes happen. So to not be able to like, be out at a venue or in the back of a venue in our van, just hanging out, like it's a little weird, but everybody's kind of experiencing, said pandemic just in different areas of their life.
Absolutely. And you kind of touched upon there, like obviously you guys are in different areas and the release of this new album that we could talk about in a minute, but has that kind of made, I suppose you've had this album like ready to go for a few months, and you've had this like album release plan. Has that like kind of made you have to jig around a few things last minute?
It's made it, I mean, for us, it's a little weird because it's our first release with Unfd. So we've been conditioned to do things a certain way our whole career. And it's been, I mean, it's kind of just like the same, you record a record at the beginning of the year, you wait 4 or 5 months. In our case, we're waiting eight months.
Right.
So it's more so you get antsy, you get ready to like tell people and show people. And then, there comes a time when all of the like things leading up, it's just done. So, when the music's out, it kind of feels like a weight is lifted, but at the same time, it's kind of just like, it's a little sad because it's something that you just kind of like look forward to. There's very few days, I feel like out of the year or years when your band is a band where the days kind of just revolve around you. There's a lot of love happening on the internet. Like, so it's been really cool to release those singles in midst of everything that's happening, because it's been a nice, just, I don't know, just kind of change of pace for a lot of the negativity that's going around in the world right now. But I mean, there were a lot of conversations with UNFD. Like, we weren't going to do vinyl variants. We weren't going to do physical copies because of everything that was happening. We were just going to go straight digital. And then, after a lot of conversation of going back and forth with them, kind of just decided that it was a good idea to still go ahead and try to do something in physical form. I think there are these weird shifts that keep happening in the scene where people don't buy records, and then they buy records, and then they don't, and then they do. So, you know, we're just kind of hoping that it's in one of those waves where they do. But either way, like, I feel like the band has been a band for so long that there are people out there who want that like tangible copy of the music and not just the Spotify version. Or
what's your kind of opinion on physical and digital music nowadays? Do you not really care for physical, or?
I'm a vinyl collector.
Yeah,
just depends. Like, obviously you kind of have to be more selective when it comes to like, you know, a 12-inch version of your music, and when it comes to collecting and how you can like take care of them and stuff. But I went through the phase of like, nah, streaming's easy, I'm just going to listen to everything I like on the internet. And then it doesn't, I don't feel like I'm being like supportive. There's not as much like novelty there. Where like, you know, you buy a vinyl, you sit and listen to it, and you're holding a gigantic version of the artwork. You're kind of like immersed in this world that's created within that music, versus like, it's really easy to just listen to stuff on Spotify and then never listen again. Because there's so much other music that, you know, like, I've got things favorited on my Spotify specifically that like when it comes on, I'm like, it'll be favorited, and I'm like, man, I don't think I've ever even heard this song, but clearly I have. So it's a lot easier to, I think, have like a lack of awareness for what's actually happening in the scene. But I mean, I'm just thankful. Like, like I said, not to like always talk about how old the band is, but I feel like to be a band that's come through the different eras of like all the waves of, like I said, CDs selling and then not, and then streaming become more prevalent. Like, we're just happy to still be here, to still have people have like that almost infinite access to the music. So I'm not gonna like, I guess, bite the hand that feeds when it comes to having the music on a streaming platform. But I think it just like definitely sucks, because that's like the measuring tool that people use now. Like numbers are very prominent within the whole scene, and people pay attention to, you know, how many plays you're getting, how many listeners you have. And, you know, back in the day, it wasn't like that. Back in the day, there wasn't, you know, I couldn't even tell you what some of the people in my favorite bands when I was growing up looked like, because I didn't have the internet like that. You know, you had magazines and stuff that you would cut out, put on your walls, and, you know, like ads for CDs, but it was just a different time back then. So
100%. So, well, you know, the whole digital age has just kind of like changed the music world like so quick. You like say, going from like physical releases and up to like how the band looks, you wouldn't always know unless you picked up the magazine or you went to the show. That's what it looks like. I didn't imagine that's that kind of voice coming out of that guy.
Even if I were to see people from bands that I listen to that like dudes from Under Oath, like, to me, they just look like normal dudes. Like, we all are normal dudes at the end of the day, but like, I don't know if I could pick them out of a crowd, and that's a band I've been listening to for like 15 years or something. So 100%. It's just weird how the shifts just within not even the music, just like the fandom, and how people, I think now there's like more of like an individual fandom with people, and it's really easy for like individuals within their bands to like succeed as just like their own entity. For us, Moths has just never really been like that. We're all just like old dudes that don't really do well on social media. Like, so it's a little weird, but you know, you gotta, like I said, evolve and adapt. So
cool. So I mean, we go talk about the new album, No Eternity in Gold. That's coming out next month. How are you kind of feeling about, you know, the lead up to this release as in comparison to your previous albums?
I mean, I feel like there's always been this like weird misconception that Rise made us do things a certain way, or had this like weird formula that they always tried to follow, and it's like not really the case. A lot of the stuff that we've done in the course of our career has been ideas that have like been passed on through our team. So like, we're no stranger to like shooting ourselves in the foot when it comes to just like backstepping and doing stupid things. last record we did 5 singles. We learned the hard way that you don't want to release half the record before the record comes out in single form. So we started in August with this rollout. August, September, October, a single for every month. And it's been kind of, I don't know, it's just like a nice pace. It's not overkill on releasing, but it also, I think, keeps people engaged and excited. And it allows them to kind of like shape the record mentally instead of, you know, if you're given all the pieces, there's not much room for imagination. So it gives people, I think, just means of, kind of like I said, just like being excited about the band again. We're just like a really weird band when it comes to social media. Like I said, we're not going to be like the type of band who's like, yo, you guys miss us on tour, let us know what city you want us to come in. Like I feel like there's like really like just like surface level ways to engage with your fans, and that's the way to do it. And we're just the opposite of that. So you know, like touching back to the social media side, it's definitely made it challenging because I don't always like to feel like I'm a salesman. Hey, check this out. Go buy this. Go buy this vinyl. You know, we're running out of stuff. Like, because I think people see when it's not genuine. So for me, it's just been like this weird learning curve of figuring out how to be proud about the art that I've created while also maintaining a balance of like being a normal human being. And I use normal just broad because there's really no normal, but I guess I just mean like normal in society's eyes. You know what I mean? If you're constantly talking about your brand and what kind of cool stuff you provide to the world, you know, at some point, I think it just feels like a fluff, and you're kind of just like, you know, but maybe in the same breath, you're kind of trying to speak it into existence. I don't know, different strokes for, you know, different folks, but I think for us, it was just nice to feel like we have more control. This is the first time in our career where I feel like we've just like taken the reins back. And it's not anything focused on labels or managers or agents, or it's kind of collective of everything. We've been the band who I think we were in one of the prime eras of being like one of those bands. It's like, well, you need a manager. You need to have this person behind the scenes. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we need that. And then our new manager is fucking an awesome dude. But, you know, the last couple dudes we've had have definitely put the band through the ringer. And you were just as much at fault at the end of the day. You know, you can be naive to your brand and, you know, be kind of distant, and then, you know, bad things will happen, or you can kind of be a little more assertive. And for us, I think a lot of it was just like growing up. And, you know, when you're a kid and there's older people telling you, you should do this, this is a good idea, you're going to probably listen because that's just how it's designed. But, you know, as we got older, we're all in our 30s now. So younger side of the 30s, but we've just kind of, I think, just become more firm in how we want the band to be represented. And UNFD's just given us kind of free reign to do whatever. Obviously they have their suggestions, but it's been nice.
Cool. I mean, you kind of touched on my next point there. So, you know, you've obviously signed over to UNFD. What's it been like? Because obviously you were with Rise Records and you were with them for, I think, literally every release you put out until the new one. And obviously your free track EP just before that. What's it been like working with them? Is it like, do they operate differently to how things were with Rise?
I think, but again, like I said earlier, not to like discredit Rise. So I feel like there's like a big misconception that like we didn't like that label, or you know, there were obviously times, you know, you go through a breakup and you know, the first little bit of your breakup, you might say some bad shit, but you've got some time to reflect. So
it's not happy days every day, is it? So.
Yeah, I've definitely said my stupid stuff in regards to like the relationship there. But I think, like, all in all with UNFD, it's never been one of those things. It's like, well, you guys have to do this. You guys have to be this kind of band or do this. Like they kind of just signed the band, I think, just with intent to just sign us and let us do what we wanted. Obviously, they have like say when it comes to, you know, singles and how, you know, the ultimate say.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just really cool because it's, I don't know, it just feels I feel like we're more like intertwined with the label and things that they're doing moving forward, instead of being just like a small fish in a big pond over at Rise. Like Rise is a huge label, ton of bands. Sometimes it's hard to be like in the spotlight. I think with Unfd it's just a little easier. They have, I think, bands more focused to specific genres. And they've only got like 6 bands or something. So granted, it's early and we're probably still in the honeymoon phase of just like, you know, the sense of euphoria that comes with just like being somewhere new, being with people that kind of like keep you inspired. But I think that's the cool thing, is like there's been a lot of like ups and downs with the band, probably more so downs recently from 2015 to 18, 19 up until UNFD. And it's kind of just like lit a fire under all of us to, I think, like I said earlier, just kind of like take the reins back in the career. There's a lot, like our last record was like sonically lighter. So people think that was like a product of Rise.
Right.
And it's like, no, we just wanted to write. Like we were getting older, you know, we just wanted to try something different, see if it would benefit the career, you know? So it's not like, there's, like I said, there's just like a lot of weird ticks that have gone on behind the scenes. So for us, it's just nice to be able to do kind of like an ass kicker record again, show people that like we're kind of here to stay within the metalcore scene, while also like maintaining like humility and being humble, because we're not trying to like dethrone any of these like, you know, top tier metalcore bands. Like they're there for a reason. We just want to be in the mix of the names of, you know, people talking. So
cool. At what point did you kind of, as I said before, like you've been with Rise for a long time, at what point did you guys kind of think like, you know, now is the time for change, let's see what else is out there, try something new?
I think just the end of the last cycle. We'd gone through a manager, we went through not agents, but just a lot of people behind the scenes. We'd cycled out more people behind the scenes than anything. Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to, can you repeat the question again? And I'll just re-answer it.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, at what point did you kind of think, you know, it's time to step away from Rise and try something new?
I got lost in my thinking. See, I don't really know if it was like anything to do with Rise, or if it was something to do with the band. That's what, like, that's the difficult thing here, is like everybody could point fingers and it'd be like one of these big circles of everybody pointing fingers at each other. You know, there's a lot of things where we could obviously put blame on the label and they could put blame on us, because like I said, there's been a lot of times where we're not the greatest on social media. You know, we release a record and maybe we won't like talk about it a ton, but it's not that we don't care. We're just not great at doing that.
Yeah.
So it was really after like 2017, I think, when the record, when Dark Divine like started to come out, we were realizing that the process wasn't really what we were wanting. As far as just like lack of communication back and forth, lack of communication with our manager back and forth. So then like when we removed all those pieces, signed to a new or, you know, like signed on a new manager, started like kind of like trying to pivot, there were a lot of things that we saw that the band was benefiting from by just being kind of like proactive about the things that we wanted to do. So it wasn't a matter of like Rise not caring. I think it was just a matter of there being too many bands to focus on a band that was kind of this like dead weight on the label.
Right.
And, you know, like I'm very understanding of that. Like, not that we view ourselves as dead weight, but when you're on a label for 10 years and we've kind of just maintained, there's only so much you can do. So for us, we kind of just saw it as like, well, we could either put out one more record with Rise and that'll probably be the last one, or we could try to revive the career. And I think we did the latter, and I think it's worked. I mean, at least well for us. It's kind of hard to gauge because I think every band feels like they're the biggest they've ever been because streaming services are crazy right now, and everybody's home and everybody's listening to music on the internet. But I don't know, for us, it just feels nice to not feel like we're dead in the water anymore. I feel like there were a lot of times where the band wouldn't get looks for tours, and it wasn't until recently where we started to like really kind of just like grind with our team that we noticed the shift just in how we were perceived.
Right.
So, you know, like obviously very late in our band's career, but I don't think there's any like rules on when you got to figure things out. You know, I think some bands are lucky and they figure it out early on, and they can, you know, maintain it from record one through the course of their career. For us, it was more like, you know, figuring things out after our 5th release, and then you know, here we are. So
well, different bands take different routes, and it's just like in life, man, people don't all follow the same path. But
100%. It's hard to see that though. I think especially when I think, like I was touching on earlier, when numbers are such a prevalent part of the scene, and it's almost like, you know, the forefront of what you see. Like when you go to Spotify or Apple Music, or, you know, like the songs are rated by popularity and they show you how many plays, and it's just like as beneficial as it is, there's sometimes where I find myself focusing very heavily on that instead of focusing on like the art that we provide. So
well, I suppose that's, you know, that's completely normal. Like even if you just look at people who look at their social media accounts and they're like, why has this photo got X amount of likes but this one didn't get this many, and stuff like that. I think it's exactly the same thing. So,
I was actually talking to my wife about that the other day. There's just like no way of, I think it's just because I'm older, but there's just like no way of understanding social media for me. So it's just it's the biggest mystery.
Yeah. Well, it's because they change their algorithms every other week, and you just don't know what's going on. But I mean, we obviously go back to the album, No Eternity in Gold. Were there any particular themes that kind of were driven in terms of the lyrics for you on this one?
I think it's just kind of like a snowball of everything that I've written about in the course of my career until now. I think a little more controlled. I think in the past that my, like, we can say angst was unguided, and a lot of times was just very broad. On this record, I kind of just like honed in a lot more on specific instances in my life, and I think it's easy to tell. I think as a whole, the record kind of sounds the same, like the vibe, but each of the songs has its own weird, like, negative message masked. Oh, we'll say positive message masked in a negative situation. So for me, a lot of Moths is just writing about kind of like the trivial things that I go through. Obviously not as surface level as I'm making it sound, but I try to be like an open book when it comes to like my vulnerabilities, so that when I play these songs, I can still like relive a lot of those emotions and like feelings that I felt when I went through it. There's not really any like huge shift in what the lyrics are. I think anybody who's like, you know, like known Moths or listened to Moths, they'll see that. But I also don't mean it to seem like there's been like no advancements. I think everything is just kind of like it's a more complete effort from the band. Like I don't listen back and like in the past I would listen back and be like, man, I really wish I would have changed this lyric, or I wish I would have done something different here. There's not as much of that on the new record. I think it's just because we were actually like prepared. There's a lot that went on, just like behind the scenes. Like we'd been notorious for doing records with no material. So we would go in, we would write the record in, and we went in with this record with 35 songs or something like that. So
quite a few.
There was a lot for us to pull from. The dudes were just eager to go and they were ready. But that's also like a testament of us sitting out for 3 years and watching everybody else put out records, and it made the dudes eager to sit back and write. But Um, back to the lyrics. I think it just kind of like encapsulates my struggle with religion, everyday relationships, feeling like I'm inadequate for a lot of the situations that I'm put into.
Right.
And it's kind of like my way of coping with that, kind of just like that feeling of being second best while also still feeling like I've got a lot to provide. I think it's really easy to feel like at my age, at 31, I feel like I have nothing to offer the scene at my age because I'm just so old. And that's a really kind of like a twisted concept. So for me, it was kind of just about separating from that mindset and kind of just like claiming my spot back in life mentally. Like I said, we're not trying to like dethrone any bands or like, you know, we're better than that. We're the best metalcore band. It's like, no, like, you know, we're very in it, like in the understanding that like, you know, we don't reinvent the wheel. We don't do these like crazy dynamic shifts, but I do believe that the band does what we do very well. I think there's like a, again, I hate to keep using this word, but like a misconception that your band has to be doing these like crazy things to be perceived as a unique band.
Yeah.
But I think you can do things that are, maybe we'll say like pop structured, because I think we follow that a lot of like the verse chorus thing. And I think people write it off because it fits this formula that they don't agree with, and the scene is supposed to be underground, and like there's just, people make too many rules within music. It's like, just because it doesn't reinvent the wheel doesn't mean that it's not good. It's just like the same as what's happening, but different. You know, it's a weird thing that I'm trying to like wrap my head around as well. As
weird. I think there's this weird conception of metal as well. If you kind of touched on it there, so I mean, sorry for interrupting you, but
no, you're okay.
There's this weird conception of metal that if you do successful or you do things that aren't, you know, this super technical guitar bit or this crazy time signatures, and you follow kind of like you kind of said like a pop structure, and you're selling out, then that's not cool. I just don't get that.
So the thing that baffles me the most about this is like, at the end of the day, do the fans of these bands not want the artists to succeed? Yeah. Like, do they want them to stay in this tiny pocket of, oh, it's my band, I found them, they're so underground, and then when it hits this level of success, there's like, oh, they abandoned their sound, or it's like, well, is that not what these bands are supposed to do? Like, so one thing that I've noticed through the shift of releasing music is our last record was light. All people could say was like, whoa, where's the heavy stuff? Like, what happened? Like, why aren't you guys riffing? So we released 2 songs that are arguably the heaviest in the catalog of recent years. And people being like, oh man, are you guys releasing songs that are like this, that have a lot more singing? Or
you can't
like,
win.
are you guys, you can't win, man. It's like, well, what, like, where were you 3 years ago when we released a record that was 90% singing? Like, so I think it's just one of those things where I've been saying it a lot to homies recently, because a lot of friends are releasing music too. Yeah. I think what it boils down to is people just complain to just complain. Yeah. I think people love to hear themselves talk about things that they don't like,
and they want the attention, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that gets me is why people want the negative attention that comes with it. But I think it just has to be like a weird complex thing that I don't really understand. Like, people get so cut up about bands that it turns into like this indirect thing of like their whole life's point is like disproving this band's credibility, how good they are. Like, it's just so weird how personal things are when it comes to just like supporting bands within the scene sometimes.
I think like one of the biggest examples you can kind of see in metal of that kind of thing is if you look at Bring Me the Horizon's career, their first albums were like deathcore. They've now gone to this like more poppy thing. And those first albums, people hated them, and like I think they supported Killswitch one time and they were getting bottled and stuff. And now they've gone really light, and they're like, your first album was the best album.
It's like, dude, where were you 20 years ago when we were playing like 200 club rooms to nobody and like struggling? Like, I think that like that's kind of what I mean is like people don't want these bands to do well, and like Bring Me, regardless if you like them or not, you can't deny that they set the precedent for what's cool for the next couple years.
Yeah.
So bands in like 6-7 months, they're gonna sound like Ludens and Parasite Eve and Obey. Like it's just how it happens. Like it happened with Suicide Season. It happened with There's the Hell. It happened with Sempiternal, because Moths is a product of Sempiternal, like through and through. From like 13 on, that was like the record that like kind of just like molded why we structured things the way that we did.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I feel like you can't deny like the effect that band has on the scene. It's just crazy that it's oftentimes accompanied with the, oh, I miss when you guys were death metal. It's like, bro, they were a terrible death metal band. Like,
I mean, you know, I'd say some Eternal is their best, but kind of like it's just like we've been saying, like you can't win. Like you're either too light or you're too heavy. There's no like, oh yeah, this is right. Yeah.
I think it's just like I think giving the masses your product for them to critique. And I think the thing is like nobody knows how social media is going to like roll. So like I don't think they knew when they came out with that record that it was just going to be this like humongous thing that like overtook the internet, and it did. But then they've done it like record after record after record, and it's like, well, I think they just know what they're doing, so just let them do what they want to do.
100%. I mean, we kind of took a different course there, but I mean, going back to your lyrics, I've noticed across the, you know, your albums, and you kind of mentioned it yourself, there's a lot of talk about religion and like a bit of like a rejection of faith and stuff like that. I know in some of your previous bands you also talked about religion and faith. So in A Graceful, you've got some stuff there, and also your time in Amorosa way back then. Do the topics of faith and religion play a big part in your inspiration when writing?
I think it's the thing that I have the biggest lack of understanding for.
Right.
So it's my like biggest confusion, but it's also, I'm from the Midwest.
Right.
It's very like Christianity is like the thing here. It's just easy to do. It's easy to like, I don't know what it was. Like when I was younger, it just was like the easy thing to not like fess up to like you doing bad things. It's like, well, oh no, I'm a Christian. That doesn't mean anything. So there's a lot like when I got older, you know, when you grow up in like your little town and you're, you know, I was 17 when I left on my first tour. So when I get on tour, like I start seeing things for how it is. I get out of my small city, and you know, you kind of just like see the world for genuinely what it is. And I think for me, I just started to get so angry. There was a lot like happening within just like my family, and watching my family struggle and watching other people's families struggle. And like my family's like for pretty like lower underclass, like, and that's just how it was for us, you know. Like I was probably the quote unquote like white trash kid in my neighborhood, and that's just like, you know, what we knew. But there was also always this like drive for my grandma to push like religion on us, and so that was like the root of our existence. Like my family was church every Sunday, church every Wednesday, and then you do the same thing, rinse and repeat the next week. And then I started touring, like I said, and I started like a lot of the things I was experiencing, people would be like, well, just pray about them. It's like, well, I can just do something about it. I don't need to just pray and wait. Like, you know, that, like, don't get me wrong, it's important to have faith. And, you know, like I even think that prayer is important now, being years separated from, you know, the mindset of like the angsty, like anti-religious dude. But the whole ideology of religion and that's the only thing that can make you happy is so twisted, because the morbid thing is that you only have one chance on earth. That's it. So you spend it anticipating this great afterlife, but you're missing this beautiful experience that we have here. Like, dude, this year has sucked. Don't get me wrong. The pandemic is awful. The virus sucks. But like the years that like are going to kind of like sandwich in this year, there's just so much opportunity there. Like I'm not going to base like the bad times that I had in my life prior to this. There's no way that you could compare it to like COVID or what everybody's had to experience this year, you know, like obviously that's subjective to the person. I'm just saying in my situation, but yeah. I guess throughout all the bad, there was just more shift for me being like, you know what, like if I act on this, it seems like things will get done. And then I think through that, a lot of, I think like I wrote a lot of things out of spite when I was younger, just because of my lack of understanding for religion and like my level of comprehension with a lot of what I was seeing just didn't match up. So I think over the course of like more recent, I'm not as like mean about it. It's more just experiencing or like writing about my experience. But I mean, in the past, there's stuff that I can't really even listen to because I don't really think like that anymore. Like I'm not that angry of like an anti-religious person. Like as I've gotten older, it's a personal relationship with me. It's something that I struggle with, but I'm also understanding that that's a huge part of society and what just like I think just the general person is struggling with. Yeah. So I guess to ball it up, religion for me is like it's my roller coaster. Like, right. You know, there's times where things happen with my family and my first instinct is like, holy shit, like I need to pray about this. I need to like figure it out. Like I got to get my head right, you know, and then there's times where like, I just need to relax. Like, so for me, it's just like it's a double-edged sword. I find myself right in the middle of it fairly often, especially with a lot that's happening now. So I hope that the new record kind of like elaborates on that a little bit more. I think, like I said, it just doesn't, it's not so like F you, F religion. Like it's more, I think, focused on specific, like specifics within those broad terms, you know, like, so, yeah. So sorry for the long run around on it, but
no, it's all right.
Yeah, all in all, religion has been just like my biggest up and down in my life. So
yeah, and obviously as a musician, you got to talk about it. So
yeah,
100%. I also know you're a big fan of Harry Potter. Is that right?
So that's a weird thing now. I think just because so J.K. Rowling has made herself like not. She's shown herself not in the greatest light on social media lately, but. Yeah, I mean, I think if you know the band, there's been a lot of like, I mean, probably at this point, 5 songs named after Harry Potter references. It's just something that was like, when we did it on like earlier in the career, it was just kind of just like, because we liked that stuff. Yeah. It'd be like the same as someone being a Star Wars fan and naming a song Death Star or something like that. Like, and then, you know, we did it on An Eye for an Eye with I Solemnly Swear, and people were like, dude, is this Harry Potter? That's so freaking cool, man. Like, and, you know, it kind of just became like a meme for us. But yeah, it's, I got like Harry Potter tattoos and stuff. But that was like I think everybody's got like their trilogy or their series that was like kind of just like pioneered their, like that side of like entertainment when it comes to movies. So, like Aaron, our bass player, he's really big on Star Wars. It's like what he grew up on. For me, I remember going to the midnight releases of Harry Potter. I remember like reading the books when I was younger. Like those were the first like big books that I completed. Right. Because you know that like when you're younger, they start out, they're like this. And then you get to the 4th book and it's like, bro, you're like reading like 10 books in one. Yeah. So for me, when I was younger, it was like the first place where music takes me now. Music really takes me from a place of not understanding myself. And I think that's the cool thing with music is like you can listen to artists that you don't even know and you can get this understanding for them as a person. Yeah. So like the Harry Potter movies when I was younger, they gave me that. They gave me that kind of like that experience to like use my imagination to kind of like escape from like this world. So I think it's cool to be able to kind of like offer out that same type of energy for other people, because I know how important it was for me, which is a really weird way to get back to, yeah, dude, Harry Potter. But I think that's just art in general. You know, if you can find something within the art that you like that takes you to this place of like freedom, of like mental relaxation, of like this mental euphoria, then the artist they did something genuine. They did something right. It's authentic. Like, so I think it's just cool. That's the vibe I got from that when I was younger.
Yeah. What do you think of the new Harry Potter game that's been announced? Are you into that, or?
I'm ready. Yeah.
You ready?
I think like.
I think is it set in the 1800s or something like that?
That I don't know.
Right.
I kind of want to leave a little bit of like room for surprise, but like all of my like homies and friends that were big on like the console launches and stuff. So we were watching the Sony live thing, and when that came on, like I remember getting just like butterflies, just like holy shit, it's happening! Like we've been waiting. Oh my god! But that's like also one of those things where games lately have made me. I wouldn't say jaded, because I don't want to seem like an asshole, but you wait for a game and then it's like, well, unfortunately, due to pandemic, we've got to push the game back 8 months. It's like, oh my gosh, bro, this 8 months, you were going to save these 8 months for me. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited though.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you more like a PC gamer, or are you a console kind of guy?
I try everything. I'm just not great with a mouse and keyboard.
Right.
So I've been a controller kid my whole life, so I'm like console through and through. But like 2 years ago, I got a PC for gaming, and it's like everybody who says PC master race, I finally believe them.
Oh, really?
But I think so, just because of like, I don't know how to, like the amount of games, the catalog of games is way deeper than console, I think.
Right.
Like, and I guess I'm mostly basing that from like we'll say like under $40. Right. You can't buy a used or a new game now for, you're paying $70 at this point.
Yeah.
So, right, granted, I don't know what it is there. It's probably more, right?
So it's like if you get if I went to go buy like the new Tony Hawk's or the remake of Tony Hawk's, that's like 45, 50 quid. So in dollars, it's like, $70, $75, I guess.
Yeah, that here was like $45, I think.
Oh, really?
They like undersold that game. Not undersold in quantity, but like the price tag. It was like $20 cheaper than a normal game.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't really import that over here though, can I?
Bro, I don't know how anybody can afford it here. I was looking up really off topic, but the new console games, they're dropping the price at $70. Like right away, the price is $70. Yeah. So it's like already like $10 more than what we're paying. So
yeah. So I'm gonna get the PS5, but I'm gonna wait a few months because I want the price tag to go down. I want more games out, and like any teething issues, I want them ironed out.
Yeah, same, honestly.
So I'm just gonna do my PS4 games until then.
I was talking to a buddy about that yesterday. I don't think they're gonna like completely do away with the 4s and the Xboxes right away. They're gonna have to meet the demand of people not wanting to buy.
Yeah, there'll be like a phasing out period, I guess.
Yeah.
So I've not even played. I want to play The Last of Us 2, but I've not got all of that yet.
Oh, dude, that game made me cry.
Oh, really?
Twice.
I mean, the first one was one of my favorite games ever.
The second one is people are very mixed on it, but it's one of the best video games I've ever played in my life. The story is amazing.
I'm just waiting for the price to go down. That's the main thing for me.
It should be soon. They'll be like, what do they call it? Black Friday? Yeah.
Yeah, we've kind of gone off topic there, but so people may not know this as well, but obviously you do, you're a bit of an artist. You create prints and flash sheets and stuff like that. And I saw on Twitter that you're looking to create your own comic book. Yeah. Can you tell me a bit more about
that? So like I just really have like the early ideas kind of going. I think now I just see like kind of just like infinite time, because I expected to be touring all year. I expected this year to be busy. So after like maybe like earlier this year, I did a print called The Forever Hotel. And it's, for me, it kind of like symbolized this like purgatory place that people go in between their heaven and hell.
Right.
So it's like this really weird, kind of just like looming, just like place. So within that, I want to create some like characters that are just like stuck within this hotel. And it just, once I thought about the idea, it kind of just seemed like something that could be cool. Like I'm a big horror buff. I love, newfound love for comics, but I've always loved like cartoons and shit. So like my wife has always joked that I should voice cartoons just because I'm like really, like, I'm just a weird dude, do weird stuff with my voice. And yeah, I don't know, it just became something like where I like recently just was like, you know what, I kind of want to do this. Like I've just been drawing a lot this year and learning just how to do like full compositions when it comes to illustration and stuff. And throughout that, I've had people being like, yo dude, like you could probably do a comic with some of this. And then as I thought about the idea more, I kind of just like it. So I think it just is another, like, art is like expressive freedom. I think it's really cool to kind of like what I was touching on with the Harry Potter stuff. It's really cool to be able to like separate yourself from like the real world and the stuff that's happening, to create this like mental release for people. Whether it be like, little cartoons, like, or comics like you see in the newspaper, like people make a living out of stuff like that. So like if people can make a living out of stuff like that, there's kind of just infinite opportunity for people to do what they want. So yeah, doing a comic seems cool. I've always wanted to write a book, but I don't think I can collect my thoughts well enough to write a book. So I'll stick to songs and
comics for now.
We'll see about comics.
Yeah, I suppose that this downtime, it's like the perfect chance for you to take a stab at the comic book as well. You got
Yeah. I mean, at this point, there's a lot of talks of like touring not even coming back next year, which is awful to think about. But I think for the most part, I want to just kind of have like a contingency plan for my life, because we all thought that it would be music forever, but not that it's not music forever, but there's definitely, like, you got to think
it's
elsewhere.
On ice now. Yeah, it's on ice now. Yeah.
So, it's weird because it's been like our identity for so long. Like me, I was Amarillo when I was 15 or 16, 17. I mean, so it's like almost 15 years of my life has been just kind of like devoted to just like this weird, like, scene and the shifts of it. So, I guess that, when you've been in it that long, it's not like it's going anywhere. So just got to wait it out.
Yeah. Are you guys going to do any live stream shows, or are you're not sure about that?
Excuse me. So I think we're going to do like an acoustic set between like our guitar player, Zach, and myself. It's just the easiest thing we can do without getting everybody up here. So Aaron, he's about to have his second kid like a day or two before the record drops.
Okay.
And like I said, he's one of the members that's 8 hours away. And then Jeremy, our other guitar player, is also 8 hours away in Georgia. So maybe more like 10 now. So yeah, it just poses a lot of like road bumps that we can't hurdle right now, unfortunately. So I think the acoustic set will do for now, just to kind of like tie people over, I guess, for a little bit. But yeah, that's been one of the things that's been more trivial throughout the whole process, is figuring out how to still keep our band in front of people.
Yeah.
Without having to release a steady stream of music. You know, obviously you release an album that gets people stoked, but if there's not like tours or things to keep people excited, I think it becomes, I think you just chase too much. It's like figuring out like, well, how can we get people to see it? How can we get people to do this or to listen or to talk about the band? And that's what we're dealing with now. Honestly, it's very tricky.
Yeah, definitely. What else have you guys got planned for 2020? I know obviously there's you know only so much you can do with the pandemic and stuff, but you got anything in the pipeline or next year as well?
Not really, because a lot of the things that we would have done were like early in the year shifted to later in the year, which ended up getting shifted into next year. So I think for us, it's a lot of just like sitting back, letting the record come out, and then just seeing how it's perceived. I think for us, it's not anything different, but it's different from the last record. And I feel like people base their expectations on the most recent thing that they heard, just because that would obviously just like show the trajectory and kind of just like shift that things are moving in. Yeah, it's kind of like a stale couple months, unfortunately. So it's been a lot of like creative damage control on how we can stay active and do sales and maintain like our level of success while not taking away from the attention that the label's trying to bring to the band and stuff. So it's definitely been a little weird, but I think for us, it's just, we're just kind of sitting back and letting it all happen. There's another video that comes out next month with the last single. Then other than that, it's just like little things that accompany the record. There's a couple songs that got cut from the record that might come out later, like early next year, just to kind of like
B-side kind of things.
Yeah, like segue into, you know, like spring or whatever. But I imagine at this rate, a lot of bands are, I think a lot of bands that are putting out records now are going to go back and do records fairly soon, just because I think that's just how it's going to be.